All right, Joel, thanks and welcome to the Western Hunting Hub podcast. For everyone listening, we have Mr. Joel Turner on today from shotiq.com. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate your
Yeah,
time, getting away
appreciate it.
from your bow range.
It's for once a nice day here in Washington, so I was out slinging arrows when you called me. Sorry about the delay.
Oh, no, you're just fine. I got to start right away with a huge thank you. Um, 2019, someone turned me on to just your mindset work, your um everything you do, really. And something clicked for me like really well. And I was just drilling arrows after that. And it was hard to put into words. And I've tried to share those things through my bow hunters that I work with and friends and whoever, but something clicked and had a really great year competition wise, small competition wise, like hunting competition stuff,
Mhm.
not the league shooter. I'm not a target archer by any means, but some things clicked there, and it was a great year. And ever since then, some things have just been made a lot of sense. So
Do you know specifically what it was?
shot process. I'm
Okay, like,
identifying
but
exactly what
be,
that was. Go on.
yeah, be as specific as you can because when you have these epiphanies, like lots of people have these epiphanies, but they don't blueprint how they did it.
Yeah,
So when you say something clicked for you, you really got to dive into that and go, what was it? And then blueprint it. Like, how do I do what I do? And that's what I'm finding in all the stuff that I'm diving into these days is people don't really know how they do what they do,
yeah,
even up to professional sports levels, because they may have been dealing with talent their whole life. But until you understand how you do what you do, number one, you can't put it out there. You can't teach anybody anything. And it just makes you so much more powerful because when you're having a bad day, you had to have blueprinted the good day so that you can actually get back to it.
yeah. I like that. It was what it was shot process. Just having the like verbalizing a shot process and breaking those things down to I'm doing this, doing this, I'm doing this, back to your open and close feedback loops to know that I was conscious of what I was doing and being
Mhm.
in control of that. Like I really like um, mindset work.
Mhm.
I've been a wrestling coach at some point, and wrestling is one of those sports that's just it's a mental game like nobody can understand. It is so mental that I love those conversations, whether it's with archery or hunting or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and I was even just in a seminar recently with it was just called a day of excellence, and it was this one lady came in, and she is one of the doctors that not psychologist doctors that works with Notre Dame, their football team, Dr.
Mhm.
Amber Selking, and she writes a book called Winning the Mental Game, and
Mhm.
it's all about rewiring your brain and the neural pathways, and it's exactly kind of what you've described over and over again, and
Mhm.
breaking those bad habits um, to being in absolute control, and that's what did it for me. Just a really cool.
Defining the mental game was the big kickoff for me after being on Rogan and him talking about, how applicable what we do at Shot IQ is to everything else in life. I didn't have the words at that time during that podcast to actually make the nexus. So one of my dear friends asked me, about 3 weeks after that podcast, can you define the mental game? Because you've made the mention of that several times so far, but what is it? What is the definition of the mental game? And to start that off with, how are you supposed to win a game where you don't know where the game is played, you don't know who the opponents are, you don't know the rules of the game, and you don't know when the game starts? So how can you possibly win it? So that's what we set upon defining the mental game. And we've plugged it into what we call the mental game equation now. And that's what's now next week is the launch of our new online course in Mind IQ. So it's fascinating stuff. And I've got to train some professional sports teams and and very high level individuals. And people really haven't defined what the mental game is until now. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Joel, let me ask you this. Is that mental game different for each person?
It's, well, let me give you the mental game definition. Let me give you the mental game equation as we see it. It's understanding where, when, and how to direct your conscious mind into a specific task at a specific moment. That's the mental game in a nutshell. In a one sentence definition, that's it. Knowing where, when, and how to direct your conscious mind into a specific task at a specific moment. You take that as an equation. So different people will have different values of where they put their conscious mind. The when is almost always the same, and the how is always speech. So whatever you say is what you think. And, we go into the whole concept of thoughts aren't thinking, and then open and closed loop control systems, then the mental game equation. Because if it's a movement problem, let's say, if you don't know open and closed loop control systems, then you can't possibly know the where and the when of the mental game equation. So that's what I'm finding, is that most people are trying to fix movements in a portion of the movement that you can't fix it. You can't gain the feedback because the movement's too fast. So, and we've always dealt with the precision end of shooting, where you're putting your conscious mind into a movement, into that trigger pressure increase. But now what I'm finding in sports, because the movements are so fast, you have to learn how to keep your conscious mind out of the movement. But you got to know where to put it, right? So I've been asking people this question for the last, I don't know, month or so. What if you guys were able to give me one skill, one life skill that has gotten you through everything you've ever done in life? What would that one skill be?
Mental endurance for me.
Okay. So mental endurance, you say. How do you do that?
Picking your battles.
Okay. But if you're going to teach me this one life skill, what's the actual skill behind those things you just said? Those are periphery. Those are, if you do this skill, you will have those things. You will know what battles to pick, because you'll know what battles you can win, and you will have this mental endurance. But there's the underlying skill of all of these things. It's how you've gotten yourself through just about everything that you've done in life. And when you have this skill, and I'll give you this skill now. I asked it on Instagram the other day and got lots of comments about, being consistent, or give it your all, do your best, persistence, consistency, all these things. But those are all it's all what happens when you do this skill. So this is the skill. The ultimate skill of the human being is the ability to get loud in your own head and know what to say. Think about that. You've gotten yourself through every stressful situation that you've ever been through by getting loud in your own head, and knowing what to say makes you more effective. So that's what I essentially teach people is, what do you say and when do you say it in these problems? And sure, it's going to be different for different people, but when you're basing this thing on science, especially the science of open and closed loop control systems, the where and the when becomes very specific. So it's just, when you understand that skill, that's the skill that you have used, you become the ultimate problem solver, because you take whatever problem you're having and you plug it into the mental game equation, and then you understand the mental game of the solution.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that it's pertaining to more than not just archery. That's like this much of what that's.
Well, but archery is the top of the heap as far as human concentration goes. That's why we're able to figure out all this other stuff, because if you can control an archery shot, like truly control it, closed loop on the trigger system, the rest of life's movement problems and cerebral problems become much easier. Because, I mean, you're essentially getting yourself through a miniature anxiety attack every time you shoot your bow. Every single time. So then when that anxiety attack comes later on in life or whatever, in some different realm of your life, much easier to tackle,
Yeah.
especially when you have the mental game equation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So move on into some neat. That's
Minds are spinning now, fellas.
absolutely.
I'm going to be quiet for a bit.
Yeah, Mark gets a chance to digest. Move on, then ask a question. So and we can't have dead air silence. That just
Thanks for taking one for the team, Clint.
yeah,
Yeah.
So you're retired now from the police force, correct?
Yeah, I retired in April of 22.
That's what I thought. It was pretty recent. How have things changed for you since then?
I'm more busy now. I don't have a 9 to 5 or a 1300 to 2340 is what it used to be, I guess. So I have much more impact now, and that's what I was seeking is much more impact, much more positive impact on the world, just with the things that we're figuring out. You're dealing with problem after problem after problem as a cop, but boy, I wish I'd have had the mental game equation when I was a law enforcement officer. It'd been so much easier to fix these problems that we dealt with on a minute by minute basis.
Yeah, absolutely. What
So, yeah. So now I travel all over the world doing shooting clinics, doing mind IQ clinics, public speaking, podcasts, doing all kinds of cool stuff.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And what's the fall lining out for you? I know draws are still probably determining some of that, but what are you hoping for, or what are you thinking is going to
So I
happen?
didn't I got myself in with a group of people that I didn't know existed. Like there's a group of very wealthy people that own ranches that like my elk calls. So my son was able to get put in for one of these hunts this year, so I'm going to be calling for him in September, which is going to be amazing. So that's going to
Any
be awesome.
specific states that you can let out of the bag?
I'll be in Montana and Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll probably be calling for a buddy in Utah as well. So yeah.
I'll be in Colorado as well. That's kind of where I head to for my out of state. Our elk hunt here is once in a lifetime. If you're old enough, it's two or three times in a lifetime, and
Hmm.
class hunt. It's outstanding, but
Yeah.
it's not the place to learn how to elk hunt.
So you're going to be hunting Colorado then, over the counter, or did they go draw, or is that not till next year?
Not till next year's the big change. I know they took a big chunk out of the Northwest region this last year, but
Mhm.
I am, yeah, going over the counter on that again. I
Okay.
really enjoy it. I lived over in the Northwest region for 8 years and got to know it, so
Good.
able to uh, work my way through the crowds, and I'm really fascinated to see what's going to happen. And I heard CPW say like it's got to be right now they're working on it for that next 5 year structure. They say
Right.
Yep.
they're going to ditch some over the counter, but they're not going to get rid of it completely. They're like they
Oh,
But
I've
th-
heard that.
they did ditch a lot of it though last year with the winter kill. I know that a lot of the northern units went to a draw. They cut a ton of tags last year as well.
Yeah.
mm,
It's just like how many can you cut before you're down to a handful of units? It's just a nightmare. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I My prediction, just a guess, is gonna be at least one of the rifle seasons is gonna go, and maybe that's all they do. It's just a very conservative drop a rifle over the counter,
hmm.
and then if they drop that archery one, man, that's a big move.
Yeah,
So
that would suck for
right,
sure.
who knows? And then we gotta
I
start
am
elk points to, for applying unless they're second choice things that are like an A tag there that's a second choice. I don't know. It could really change things, but Wyoming did some big changes where it's forcing people to um, draw their hand or use points or not with 10% allocation for non-residents and um, bound to change. We're going through some big changes here in South Dakota as well. It's just the nature of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working on getting my Montana residency right now, so I'm in the 6 month grace period. So I just happen to be in Washington today, but heading back to Montana next week. But yeah, it's you got to be a resident. That's the big thing. It's tough for non-residents. It's getting really tough all over the West for non-residents to actually be in a good elk hunt. Pretty difficult.
Exactly. And while we're on,
So Clint, though, you've had Colorado, so you've had time being a resident there. Joel, just to let you know, I'm a rookie when it comes to elk hunting. Been out a couple years,
Mhm.
um, gotten on a couple elk. Not calling in. This is gonna be the first time fully archery, but definitely gonna hopefully get some coaching from you
Oh
throughout
yeah,
this podcast as well.
yeah. I've got some info for you for sure.
so that's
Looking
what I'm
forward
about
to
to
it.
go to. Even though it's May, my brain is quickly shifting elk as these draws are coming out, and
Uh-huh.
for Mark and I talking podcast ideas. So
Mhm.
I would really love to hear, and this might be a great way to answer Mark's question there too. Thinking back to one particular elk hunt, and not just one elk hunt, but one setup that whether you connected with the bull or not, but going back to that a certain scenario from say the first bugle to the shot or no shot if it didn't give it to you, and kind of walk us through some of that decision making that you made through that scenario. Might need a little understanding of open country, dark timber, that sort of thing. And then
Mhm.
if you're able to include some calls in that, that would be super helpful. Getting those examples or the experience, sharing that experience would be, I think, super helpful.
So what we've done is I've been calling elk since I was 12 years old. I started competition elk calling, I think, in 2005. Um, I've won the world championships from RMEF in the pro division twice. And all that really means is that I'm able to impress people that are behind a curtain, right? So what I've done is I've humanized elk calling because we don't speak elk. We don't know exactly what they're saying, but they are mammals. So there are other places that you can see elk behavior without watching elk and figuring out how to call them in. And as a cop for almost 21 years, I went to lots of bar fights. The elk woods are nothing more than a bar scene full of males, male mammals with no inhibitions, right? So when I call elk in, I don't do sounds that are biologically incorrect, meaning I deal with sounds that dive directly into the instincts of the elk instead of their attitude. So, have you guys heard any of my stuff on the Shot IQ YouTube channel about like
A little bit, yeah.
the bull calling cows bugle?
Yeah. Yep.
So, have you heard about that, Mark?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So when I ask people the question, okay, so if you and I are standing at the doorway of a bar and I give you 30 seconds to go inside the bar and get in a fight with another male, you cannot use your hands. You can only use your words. You have 30 seconds, ready, go. What is your strategy? And many of them will go in still thinking about the elk woods or whatever, or however they run their lives. And they go, well, I'd go pick the biggest guy and I would spit on him or I would yell at him or whatever. I'm like, whatever you do to him, it only engages his attitude, not his instinct. So if you really want to get in a bar fight, you go in the bar and you just make an observation. Is that female with that dude? And then you go speak inappropriately to that female, and you will find yourself in a fight 100% of the time around the world. It doesn't even matter if you speak the language or not. Dude's going to pick up on your vibe. So that is one of the biologically correct ways of eliciting instinct instead of attitude. You speak to the cows, you do not speak to the bull. The bull is never the subject of your calling. So by that I mean when you go in and you get tight on a herd of elk, there's a bull and he has cows, he's a herd bull, you don't walk into the bar and talk to him. You walk into the bar and you talk to his ladies. That's your 100% strategy to actually kill this bull, because he has no option but to remove you from the bar. If he wants to make a calf with that cow, she might be interested in you. Hell, you might be a 7x7. Who knows? Right? He has to remove you from the bar. So you get in tight as you can on the cows. And I've done this as close as 10 yards from the cows and as far as 150 yards from the cows. And you blow a short, raspy bugle with no chuckles. Chuckles are a bull-to-bull communication. So if you go into the bar and you talk to the dude, you would be bugling with chuckles. If you go into the bar and you bugle with no chuckles, you're talking to the ladies.
Could you show me what that would sound like with the
So
chuckle versus
a bugle
with?
with a chuckle would be like a challenge bugle. I'll try not to blow the speakers out.
All right.
Those are chuckles on the end of that. That's a bull-to-bull communication. You just lowered your odds of calling that bull in. Are you going to call bulls in with that? Sure, but not very many. How many bar fights would you find yourself in if you just went in and talked to a dude? Not that many. If you want to get in a bar fight every time, you go do a bull calling cows bugle, short, raspy, no chuckles. That's you talking directly to the cows. So again, he has no option but to remove you from the bar. And like, what would you guys say are the two most common sounds made by human beings as far as elk calls go?
Muse and locator call.
Okay, so cow mews, right? And everybody wants that real nasally, raspy, mature cow sound.
Yep.
That sound is the worst sound you could make in the elk woods. It's the
Could you
most
give us an example of that?
sure. Well,
Sorry.
I can't even make that sound on the calls that I use.
Okay.
But I mean, it's just a regular cow mew. It's raspy. It's
Regular hoochie mama.
yeah, it's a hoochie mama, right? It's a mature cow sound. The reason that is so detrimental is because you are now a sexual threat to the cows, because the cows choose the bull. The bulls don't choose the cows. The cows choose the bull, and they become very protective of their bull. So if you get close to cows and you do a mature cow sound, whatever that is, mewing, estrus mews, estrus buzz, they got names for all this stuff, right? If you do any mature cow sound, you are a sexual threat to the cows, and the cows will take their bull away.
Hmm.
Most people think it's the bull taking the cows away, but if you put cow sounds in your repertoire of as you're moving in on this elk, on this bull, and you do cow sounds, you just killed it. They become very suspicious of that cow. I mean, think of it this way. I mean, girlfriend or wife, when's the last time that she got together with all her girlfriends and talked nicely about another female that wants to procreate with their man?
Right.
Doesn't happen in the mammal world, right? So if you go in and you cow call, you are killing your odds of calling the bull in. Now, of
So
course,
how do you,
but
sorry, how do you start your sequence then? Do you like, how do you know if there's a bull close to you? Do you start it with a cow mew or do you straight up start it with a locator?
I never make mature cow sounds in the woods. I don't bugle with
Okay.
chuckles and I don't make cow sounds. So more biologically correct sounds would be calf sounds, because
Okay.
everybody wants to help a calf. So when you go into an area, you don't know if there's any elk there, send a lost calf series through there, right? It would sound like this.
Darn, they're not coming through.
They're not coming through at all. Probably blowing my speakers out. Maybe if I do it farther away. Can I do them farther away?
Yeah.
Hang
Sure.
on.
Nothing. Darn it.
Nothing.
Was it almost like a buzz?
Yeah, we've had this problem before with the speakers and such, but I can send you guys some audio for that.
Yeah, it's just that
Okay.
high pitched stuff.
Yeah.
No way.
It's emotional. It's high pitched. That's the key. Because as soon as you go on your cow sound, that puts you in the cow spectrum. Now you're an instant sexual threat. You have to keep your calls high on the calf spectrum. When you keep them on the calf spectrum, you're not a threat to anybody and everybody wants to help you.
That makes
Right?
sense.
I had
So
a bull hang up last year, and I don't know if he had cows around or not. Um, I don't think he did. My buddy was sitting on the other side, and he only had saw him, but it was thicker cover too. But what you're saying with the chuckles is probably it.
well, did you cow call at all?
Yeah, it was a mix of a cow calling and I mean, I had to have been within 50 yards in some thick stuff.
Yeah.
Just a matter he just come a little closer, backed up.
Right.
Came a little closer, backed up. Came a little
Why
closer.
why would he come in all the way? You gave him absolutely no reason to come in all the way
Right.
because you're doing cow sounds. So whether he's got cows or not, you've created suspicion. So you guys are in your houses right now there or whatever. If you heard an adult female screaming out on the road right now, would you go rushing out of your house or would you first peek out the door and see what's going on?
Speak out.
I'd go peek.
Yeah, because you're suspicious of what's going on because it's an adult. If you heard a baby crying out on the street, we empty our houses instantly and we go out there with no inhibitions.
Mhm.
So if you play on the adult spectrum of those things, of those calls, you're creating suspicion. Therefore, you create hang up spots. The bull's only going to go as far as he can see the calling location. If that's thick, it might be close. If it's not thick, it might be 300 yards away. But when you deal with lost calf series or the bull calling cows bugle, there are no hang up spots associated with those. I don't have bulls hang up anymore once I've gone completely to those systems. Like last year, I called in 54 bulls to 40 yards or less
Wow.
between four different states.
Wow.
And I calf called or did the bull calling cows bugle on every single one. That's how I call bulls in.
Hmm.
So it's not a coincidence. It's very high odds elk calling. So if it was a scenario, like I'll give you the scenario of the bull I killed last year in Colorado. The bull, I knew he was big. I knew he was a herd bull, and I observed him the day before on this mountainside. Found him. The wind was not right to go in after him. Next morning, I found him in another basin near where he was. He ends up going right back to the same hillside. So I know instantly how I'm going to call this bull in. Because he's got cows, I don't need to calf call unless I lose him. If I lost him somewhere, then I would calf call to relocate him. And he would very readily bugle back to me, or the cows would mew to me. Either one's fine. I now know where the herd is. But when I go into the final kill sequence, I am going to do a bull calling cows bugle. So here's how it played out. He went back to the hillside. I couldn't necessarily see him on the hillside. I came in underneath him because the wind's blowing down. I got to where I knew he was. I knew he was within 300 yards of me, somewhere on this hillside in these kind of jack firs. This was at like, well, I was at 12,000 feet, so he was probably, I don't know, 300-400 feet above me in elevation. To locate him, I wasn't going to cow call for sure. I don't do that. And I don't bugle with chuckles. That's where most people mess up because now they would do bugles with chuckles. Therefore, they will elicit his attitude. And if his attitude's not right, he's not coming in. So all I did was I got set, got ready. I knew he was within a couple hundred yards of me. I didn't know if his cows were on my side or his side. So I did a bull calling cows bugle. He instantly called back to me, but he's still 200 and some yards up the hill. So I moved up 100 yards Now I'm within what I think is 100 yards of him, and I can hear him raking a tree. So most of the time when you call bulls in with a bull calling cow's bugle, most of the time they will stop and rake a tree because they are displaying, because they are coming to kill you. So they're going to remove you from the bar. So if they can display and you leave the bar by yourself, cool. They don't have to fight you. But if they are raking a tree and you do a bull calling cow's bugle over the top of them, they completely lose their mind. So I moved up 100 yards, got my feet set, arrows knocked, releases on, everything's ready to go. I can hear him raking that tree. I do a bull calling cow's bugle, just one. The tree raking stops. So I instantly know he's coming. So he was there about, I think, not quite a minute later. I shot him at 15 yards. So, and when he came in, they come in looking to kill you, and they will also display. So this bull comes in. I don't know if you guys have seen the video on Instagram or not. This bull comes in and starts raking a tree at 15 yards in front of me. They know you're there, but they are going to display again. So I shot him while he was raking a tree at 15 yards.
Also,
Correct me if I'm wrong. When they're scraping, they typically shut their eyes
Right.
and they can't really hear. Correct?
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
your time that you
He was
draw them.
just, yeah, he was thrashing this tree. And when I shot him, he didn't even hardly move. He didn't know what had happened. So not until I knocked another arrow and drew back again did he see me, and then he blew off the mountain. But that bull scored 366.
Jeez.
So yeah, he was a hell of a bull for sure.
And that was a Colorado bull?
Yeah.
I just saw that picture just a little bit ago. I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to put a number with it, some people don't like scores, but to get an understanding of a
Yeah.
size, just for communication wise, that's why I kind of like it. It's like that.
Yeah, I thought I've never scored a bull. I thought he was around 380. When I brought him back, it was like, oh yeah, that thing's 380. One guy goes, oh, congratulations, you got 390. I'm like, I don't care. I know that's the biggest bull I've ever killed. I don't care what he scores, but I would like to know. So when they taped him, it was 366.
Jeez.
So
That change from say early season when those bulls are working on herding up, they're by themselves one day, they got cows different days, versus later in that season. Um, and one of Mark's questions I know is, so do you have a preferred week in September there that you like for that? So between
yeah, so September 8th to the 15th.
sweet.
The first estrus cycle will be in those days somewhere.
What were the dates you were saying that would be your preferred week?
The 8th to the 15th.
Okay.
And
Somewhere in there is the first estrus cycle. And once you get past the first estrus cycle, you've got a bunch of cows that have already been bred. And the ones that did not get bred are not they're not ovulating, so they're not putting out the right scent. So that doesn't happen until around, the 26th, 27th of September again. So you've got this lull period where you're dealing with bulls that are protective of cows, but not enough to fight you. So
okay.
that's where the calf calls really come in as well.
You know what I noticed this year too, I'm kind of excited about it, is that the muzzleloader season I think isn't until the 21st
Oh, very good.
in Colorado. So
Yeah.
normally last year it gets a little early sometimes, and I try to avoid some of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that gives a good chunk of time in there to hit that. Literally just talked to my boss the other day, and it looks like I was going to head out on like the 7th or so and be able to hunt 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Probably hit the
Good.
15th or so, 16th.
Good.
Out,
Good. You might
out.
not want to put this podcast out until after elk season though, because everybody's going to be out getting those dates.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoops.
We'll post that September 15th.
Yeah, there you go.
When we're already out there.
There you go.
But you're hunting more than just a week, right? I mean, you're hunting 3 states. So I know you got to be out in the elk woods, and why not? You got to be. We love to elk
Yeah.
hunt.
I
So
don't necessarily change my tactics because the bar fight scene works all the time, right? There's no time of the year where the bar fight scene doesn't work. You just need the bulls to be slightly protective of their cows. That's really all you need. And if you have that, that's like around the fifth, as soon as they start to get their cows, that's when the bull calling cows bugle really works. But and all the other times, all throughout the rest of the year or rest of the season, even into mid-October, they can't handle lost calf calls. They have to respond to it. Either the cows are coming in and the bulls are going to follow them in, or the bulls just sit there and bugle their brains out trying to get this calf into the herd. And all this time that they're bugling, trying to get you into the herd, you just get quiet, get close to the herd, and then do your bull calling cows bugle. So it's, I don't change I don't really need to change my tactics throughout the season. They work just because they're biologically correct. They work all the time.
I like that.
So here's one I have for you real quick. So say that you have a bull lazy in his bed, and there's plenty of, you can name how many names. We'll say they're only going after the bulls that are ready to fight, that are worked up. Do you go after the bulls that are laying in their bed that are just giving the half-hearted bugle? Do you let them pass and wait for one to put up a fight? What do you do if you just hear just a casual?
If I'm working through an area and I do a calf series and I get a bedded bugle, like let's say it's noon, 1 o'clock, I get a bedded bugle. Cool. Now I know where he's at. I just take a nap. I just stay out of the wind on him and I just take a nap. And as soon as I hear him do a roundup bugle, that means he's up and he's trying to round his cows up. Cows don't really get rounded up too much. Like there's no such thing as a lead bull. There's a lead cow, right? So she's going wherever the heck she wants to. Now, sometimes he can divert her path by running or whatever, but that will come into a roundup bugle, which is high, fluty, no chuckles. No chuckles is the key. When you hear that high fluted bugle, no chuckles, that means they're going to start to move, either to feeding, to water, whatever they're doing. So that's a great time to just slide in there I usually try to get on the same contour as they are, and I come in from the side so I don't have to worry so much about thermals.
Hmm. I just
So
Okay.
if I do get a bedded bugle, I just wait on them until that bugle changes. Because you
How
can
far away are you waiting?
usually 400 or 500 yards. So I can
Okay.
still hear him because they usually bugle once an hour. I don't know why, but that seems to be the clock that elk are on.
I had
Never
to
heard that before.
look real quick and see that monster.
Yeah, right.
Not just you hadn't seen that before, but just for people,
Yeah,
uh, my gosh, that is a stud.
yeah.
We have a problem here in South Dakota that we have a lot of 7-point bulls, and
Oh,
it is very deceiving, um, field judging wise,
mm,
because you see a 7-point and you're like, monster bull, and then
right.
it ends up being a 290 300-inch 7-point. Just
Yeah,
it's just our genetics,
yeah,
short thirds and 7 points, and it makes it
yeah.
really tricky. Some guys get a little ground shrinkage, and it's tricky. So
Yeah, but they're fun. They're fun to go after
absolutely.
anyway.
Ab- I haven't had that tag yet, and I lost all my points when I left South Dakota, and I had
Oh
to
no.
so I
Oh,
probably
I'm
go
not tr
60. I'll be able to get one.
oh wow.
I'm not trying to brag here, but have you guys ever looked at the elk in Minnesota?
They're
These
probably
things look like moose. And it's a lottery. Like, I'm not kidding you. They're non-typical. These things look like straight out of a horror film.
uh,
There were a couple brothers that drew tags, same town, and I I think that they were 400 something
mm,
on these things. Just insane. If you get a chance, I'll see if I can pull up a picture and show you guys, but these things are gnarly.
yeah, all the bulls that are, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, evidently Minnesota, they're awesome. They've got incredible mass. They're really cool looking bulls, and usually really cool antler color. Like in Washington, we've got some crazy antler color here as well. Really
The
red.
chocolate, right?
Yeah, chocolate, red. Just depends on if they're rubbing furs or alders.
Can you guys see these things? So this is one of them. Oh shoot, I gotta get this out of here. Sorry. Probably just flip my camera so you can see it.
Oh yeah,
I mean, just insane.
yeah.
Link
Hmm.
So, as you are you got that bull coming in and you got him hot and he's 15 yards. There ain't nothing right there that's more stressful and anxiety ridden and possibly like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Um, what is going through your head? We can paint the picture of what you saw right there. We get an idea, but we can't see what's happening in your head during that process from those last 10 minutes or however long that took. What's paint that picture for us.
So it's based on the fact that thoughts aren't thinking, because most people are going to shoot their shot on a giant bull elk. They're going to shoot with thoughts alone. And if you're running on thoughts alone, you are definitely in autopilot and you're not in control of anything. So understanding that thoughts are what you hear, thinking is what you say. So the key to keeping yourself together is through speech, right? Remember the mental game equation. The how of the mental game equation is always speech. So if you go out and you practice your shooting, your archery, and you punch the trigger just a little bit, right? Like as soon as the pin gets on, you punch a trigger. Like, okay, cool, I hit the middle. And you practice that. You are literally practicing your own failure. So what that means is that you're shooting on thoughts alone in your practice, which makes shooting on thoughts alone even more efficient in high stress. And so you don't quite get your pin where you want it. You go punching the trigger. If you punch the trigger, there are pre-ignition movements linked to your trigger motor program. So you're not going to hit where you think you're going to hit because you're essentially going to flinch. And so what's going through my mind is just my shot process that I have blueprinted down to the nth degree. So like that big bull, if you watch the video, I do kind of a head check on the GoPro because I heard him coming. And I hadn't seen this bull any closer than 600 yards to this point. And so when you see me do the head check and then I lift my bow up, I'm running on thoughts right there. I'm like, oh my gosh, that thing is a freaking giant, right? And he hasn't even come around the corner yet, but as soon as I saw him, like, oh my God, that's him, right? And because I hadn't seen him like closer than 600 yards. And so I picked my bow up. Now for the last, well, since 2010, 2009 was the last year I killed a bull elk with a compound. So since 2010, I've been killing bulls with a stick bow. And with a stick bow or recurve longbow, you have to time your draw because you can't hold the thing back very long, right? So you got to really time your draw on these bulls. But so he comes around the corner. I'm like, oh my God, that thing's a giant. I pick my bow up and I'm shooting my compound with a release with no sights because I shoot them bare bow because that's the way I like to do it. So I pick my bow up and I know he's coming. He's going to come into this opening, but I'm thinking, okay, I got to time my draw right. And then I'm like, hey, stupid, you've got a compound. Probably should draw your bow back. So I yank my bow back just as his eye comes around the corner. And so, my original thoughts are, oh my gosh, that thing's a giant. Remember that thoughts have no instruction, thoughts have no strategy. Oh my gosh, that's a giant. Has nothing to do with your shot process, right? But you also have no control over your thoughts. You only have control of your thinking, which is your voice, and it's got to be the loudest one in the room. So I'm at full draw. The bull comes into view, and one of the thoughts I was having was, don't screw this up. Don't screw this up, right? Bull of a lifetime for me. Don't screw this up. That is a thought that has no strategy. It has no instruction. Okay. So I snap myself out of that by getting loud in my own head, which is the ultimate skill of the human being, right? So I got loud and saying, where am I going to shoot this guy? Because I had to look ahead of him because there's brush in front of me. I had to look ahead of him and there was a slight dip in the brush. So I made a decision right then. As soon as he gets that dip in the brush, I'm going to stop him. So there I am at full draw and I'm following along. You can watch my arrow just follow this bull. And then he gets into that dip in the brush and I'm just about to go, I'm just about to yo him. And he stops and starts raking that tree. So now I've got this bull of a lifetime at 15 yards with his head fully engulfed in this fir tree, and he's just going to town on this thing. And I had one more thought of, oh my gosh, don't screw this up. And then I got loud, got my aim right. Then I pressed my Onyx clicker to the click. Here I go. And that's what I just kind of do, an internal hum to give my pressure increase, rhythm, and timing. And I just hummed my way through that trigger, and pop, it broke, and the rest is history. So the skill is you got to get your thinking louder than your thoughts. Because again, you can't control your thoughts. You can only control your voice, and it's got to be the loudest one in the room. So now, because I've been in that situation numerous times, it was easier for me to overcome my thoughts. But for a first time elk hunter, the first time you're there experiencing that, you're literally, don't be afraid. Now, this is going to sound really weird, but I have spoken out loud when bulls are coming in, and they don't seem to mind at all. So, like, I shot a giant bull in 2019 that was coming in, another bull calling cows bugle situation. He comes in, comes around the corner. I know my hunting partner is at full draw already. He's shooting a compound. I'm shooting a recurve at the time. And this bull comes around the corner, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to walk over the top of us, because it's just like in a complete trance. And it's walking at us. And I'm telling my hunting partner, Seth, I'm like, just shoot him. And I'm saying out loud, I go, just shoot him. Just shoot him. I said, if you got a shot, go ahead and shoot him. And I'm saying it that loud. And these elk don't seem to mind that. I've spoken out loud to numerous people that I've called for as I'm walking them through a shot out loud. So if you need to get loud, if getting loud means talking out loud, I'm not saying to yell, obviously, but if something comes out that's out loud, it's okay. Just stick with it, right? If you got to talk yourself through a shot, then talk yourself through a shot. If you have trouble with internal dialogue, then talk yourself through it. They don't care. So, and I know that may sound weird, but when I look back, there's been a lot of talking out loud when we're killing these bulls.
You see this exact same thing on introductory archery of the 4-H, how they instruct, how NASP instructs. They literally tell you, and there's a couple things that it is what it is, but they literally say in that instruction to verbalize those things out loud. Just walk through your shot process, your 10 steps, 11 steps, verbalize them, say them out loud, and so on.
A lot of people have trouble. This is a big tip for people, because I get this question all the time. I mean, even in professional sports teams, I was training the Philadelphia Phillies pitching team, and one of the pitchers says, "What do you mean get loud in my head?" And I didn't answer his question. I looked to the coaches and I went, if this pitcher is asking me this question, then that means that you as coaches have never made him get loud in his own head. Like, when was the last time this pitcher pitched a bullpen and there was 10 other pitchers standing around the mound yelling at him? And they're like, well, that's never happened. I'm like, yeah, well, it needs to happen, because that forces the pitcher to get loud in their own head. So people are like, well, what do I say? Say whatever it is that you would say to a buddy. Like, if you are talking your buddy through a super slow pressure increase on a trigger, what would you say to them, right? What you would say is, okay, start pressing. Yeah, looks good. Stay in it. Keep pressing. Keep pressing. Easy now. Keep pressing. You're good. Stay in it. Keep going, right? Thinking has instruction and strategy. Don't get hung up on the words. It's just a conversation that you're having with yourself. So if you want to know what to say, what would you say to somebody else if you were teaching them how to do it?
So it's funny that you bring this up, because I've noticed since listening to everything that you've had to say, being at the archery range, and I'm at full draw, you get target panic and you flinch.
Mhm.
Coming back from a flinch was always a guaranteed miss, and I'd get in my own head and it was a guaranteed miss
Mhm.
until I literally started telling myself exactly what to do. No, bring it back. Don't cheat yourself. Follow through. And exactly what you're saying, talking yourself through it. Like sometimes even physically speaking out loud, and you'll be having people right next to you, like, what are you doing? I'm
Mhm.
going to hit this target.
Yeah. So remember, the ultimate skill of the human being is the ability to get loud in your own head and know what to say. Because what you say is where you place your conscious mind. So if you get loud with the wrong things, that's just going to allow you to spin out. When you get loud with the right things, it puts your conscious mind into specifically where you need it. So that's what we deal with the mind IQ stuff is the mental game equation for we just take whatever problem you're having and plug it into the mental game equation. And that will then you understand that when you do get loud, you know exactly what to say. So that's just one thing. Like if you were, I have people literally, I'm like, okay, teach me how to shoot an arrow. I want you to walk me through every part of your shot verbally, like you're teaching me. And then there's not all this, gee, I hope I hit the target, right? Because would you actually say that when you're at full draw teaching somebody else? Okay, this is the point where I say, gee, I hope I hit the target. No, that's not how it goes. It's not what you would do. So it really boils it down to specifically what you need to say and when you need to say it.
Okay.
So, another thought that came to me just when I am working through my shot process in the yard and even shooting 3 arrows. I got 3 arrows in there that I'm like, those are shots. Love
Mhm.
those. And I've got a fourth one in the quiver ready to go. And even that fourth one's like, okay, this one's got to match these. So it's just that created pressure, even in the yard. Uh,
Mhm.
that fourth one, I will sometimes then feel my anchor a little bit more, or
Mhm.
I'll feel something and I'm putting some attention, mental attention to certain things, and
Mhm.
then I realize, shoot, is that different? I don't even know if that's different or not. And so it's a hard thought to organize into do I act on that to make it my thinking, make it that louder voice of nope, you're good. That's your anchor, that's your spot. So it's and sometimes it's like I can feel that jaw line a little bit more. I can feel that nose a little bit more. And I related that back to your open and closed feedback loops of similar to as walking slowly as you're stalking in on something. If you feel that brush, feel that stick, then you're able to correct it and adjust it based on I can feel it and I know, nope, I know that stick's going to break and I can
Mhm.
let that pressure off. So I've struggled with that a little bit to know is that still a good shot? And I've taken what you said to heart on. If it's not a good shot, don't take it. Uh, So I've struggled to think to figure out and organize those thoughts of shoot, did I just put more attention on that? Is that it not any good? Because of that, I'm putting some more attention on it. Something that happened a little less automatically. I'm brushing up against that and I'm feeling it and saying, nope, I'm going to make that correction. I don't know if that's making any sense, but that's what's going on up here.
Well, it's just, that would mean that you're not being loud enough with the things that really matter. Like there's really only four things in your shot. Number one, draw back and aim. Number two, address the trigger. Number three, make a decision like here I go. And number four, talk yourself through the pressure increase on the trigger. All the stuff that gets in the way in the middle is your subconscious trying to get you to not shoot your bow. Right? Your subconscious does not want you to shoot your bow at all. It doesn't want you to create an explosion. So, when you say you shot three in the middle and you're waiting, you're going to try to get this fourth one in there. If you didn't blueprint those other three, then there's no way for the fourth one to go in there because the volume of your thoughts increased.
Yeah.
You think about that. Oh man, I got to get this one in there. That's a thought. That's not thinking. So, but if on the other three you went, okay, I drew back and aimed, then I addressed the trigger, then I said, here I go, then I talked myself through the trigger pressure increase. And this is what I said. This was the conversation that I had with myself. Cool. Now do it again. Okay, second one's in the group. Cool. Now do it again. Third one's in the group. Cool. Do with the fourth one. Cool. The fourth one's in the group. The fifth one, the 1000th one, it doesn't matter, right? It's every shot for the rest of your life. You're not just out shooting your bow. You're using your bow for concentration practice. You are using your bow to make your blueprint stronger. You've got to know right now how you're going to shoot your shot on your giant bull elk this year. No question. It shouldn't be a question, right? You know you're going to draw back and aim, then you're going to address the trigger, then you're going to say, here I go, then you're going to talk yourself through the pressure increase. That's it. That's how I'm going to do it.
Yep.
There's no mystery. You got to erase the mystery completely, right? Because what you were asking there with, well, if I put more attention on my nose or my jawline or whatever, those are mysteries, man. You don't have the answers for those yet. So just stick to those 4 things every single shot and make that blueprint stronger. And then when it's no question, when there's no question on how you're going to shoot your shot, then you become very powerful in the elk woods or any woods you step into.
Hey, Joel, I got a question for you. So I switched recently from the trigger with the wrist strap and pulling through, not punching the trigger, but now I'm doing the thumb release, right? So for what I'm doing with my thumb release to control the shot, what I'm doing is I'm resting my thumb on top of it. So I'm not punching my thumb, but then I'm using my fingers, my pinky fingers to flex. Is that the right way to have the controlled shot with the thumb release?
So it's not right or wrong as long as the movement is closed loop.
Okay.
It could be
Because I
you.
feel like with the thumb, you can punch it just as much with the trigger finger.
Oh, sure. You can punch anything, right? But you're using your ring finger and your pinky finger or whatever, meaning you're putting consciousness to those things so that you're moving it slow enough you could stop it. That's the only question. Are you closed loop or open loop? If you're closed loop, it's going to be a surprise break. No pre-ignition movements are linked to the trigger motor program. Therefore, the arrow has the ability to go behind the pin. If you
Okay.
go if you go open loop, that means that you move the trigger quickly, like punching the trigger. That will open up the link so that it will always link pre-ignition movements to the trigger motor program. Therefore, you will flinch and the arrow's not going to hit where the pin's at.
Okay.
So, it's not right or wrong. If your movement is slow enough you could stop it, then it's good. But there are certain movements that have less input. Like you pulling on your index finger trigger, you pulling your hand through that strap, that's a big input. It's easier to control. The bigger the input, the easier it is to control, but the less accurate it is because it's very difficult to keep that consistent because it's all depending on your preload on the trigger. How much pressure do you put on the trigger to start with? And then how much pulling do you have to do to make that thing go off? Because different amounts of pulling, different internal pressures on the bow, different internal pressures in your body, it's not going to hit in the same spot. Now, please understand, I'm talking about extreme accuracy, right? So a thumb button is a very accurate system, but there are some flaws with it because it's all based on preload. Again, how much do you just rest your thumb on there? And then if as you're moving your other fingers, is your other thumb locked in place or is it actually giving a little bit of ground? I don't know. That's one thing that you have to evaluate. That's why we created the Onyx clicker because it's got the click in it, right? So you're starting from the same exact preload every single time.
Do you have one of those with you?
I've got one right here. I think this one might be. This one was a broken one, but I can demo it. So you would draw back and aim. Once the
Yep.
aim is done, then you press to the click. And the travel that's in this thing is adjustable tension. And then there's a screw in the back that does the distance of travel. So you press it to the click. Could you hear that?
No.
So it just clicked. And then
Okay.
you just press again, just increase that pressure until it pops. So
Okay.
it's like a two-stage trigger. So you draw back and aim, then you press the click, then here I go, then you press again. So it does,
Huh.
it sets up the motor program. You get a practice swing at your shot execution,
I
right?
like that.
You're pressing it to the click, then here I go, making that decision that increases your presence, and then you simply do the same motor program again, but closed loop, slow enough you could stop it, right?
So on that one, if you release, will you have to do another 2 clicks again, or are you back to 1 click?
Like if you went to the click, if
Yep.
you went to the click and then let your thumb off of it, it still stays at the click.
Okay.
So like it just clicked, like it's stuck there. But if I need to reset it, I can actually reach behind it and reset the trigger.
Okay.
That would reset the click to it.
Okay. All right. I like that feature with it.
Yeah.
So going back to some like elk hunting scenarios here. You're in a over the counter unit. You're hunting Colorado, and you got every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the first 3 spots that you were looking at, or first 2 spots. You're in the third spot. You didn't do as much e-scouting on this. You got a rough area. You know where to be roughly looking for the elk. Tell me what it's going to look like for you going into that area. Obviously, you're going to be doing, the calf.
So there's already people in there then?
No, the first 2 areas you were your first, primary and secondary area. You're
Okay.
on the third area that you were going to look at. Obviously, it hasn't been as promising as what you wanted.
Hmm.
How are you going to approach that hunt?
So I'm going to move through the area very quickly, but I'm going to be sound checking every terrain feature. So if I am toward the top of a hill, I'm going to go to the top of that ridge. I'm going to sound check it with lost calf. If nothing bugles back to me or no cows call back to me, I move on. I move to the next terrain feature. So let's say I go down the valley a little bit and around a hill. As soon as I get around the hill, sound check it again. And that's how I move through areas. So I very, very rarely spook elk because I sound check everything. Because the sound of a calf, a lost calf, is very natural and it's biologically correct. Everybody wants to help a calf. So if you go down through their bugling, now, if you go down through there bugling with chuckles, as most people would do, you're not going to get very many responses because that's an attitude call. If
And that
you,
goes as well with heavily pressured areas because not many people do that as well.
sure. So like, let's say that I sound check an area. If I sound check an area with a calf call, only a calf call, and a bull bugles back to me with a chuckle, is that biologically correct or incorrect?
That would be incorrect because he's talking to another
Incorrect,
bull.
because I'm only doing a calf sound, right? I
Yeah.
haven't made any bull sounds. I calf call, a bull bugles back to me with a chuckle. I would say probably 75% of the time, that's another human being, right? So just listen to it and just send out another calf sound. You're not going to hurt anything by sending out more calf sounds. If you send out more calf sounds and that bull bugles back again with the same, like human beings, when you call to a human being, they hear the sound. Oh my God, did you hear that? Right? They tell their buddy about it. And then what do? They bugle. It's the same time frame every single time. Humans can't wait to bugle back to you. So if you're getting no delay, like if you calf call and this bull bugles and chuckles, you wait a little bit, you calf call again, the bull bugles and chuckles, and then does cow sounds, that's a human being.
Hmm.
It's not biologically correct. And you can tell, you're like, that sounds a little funky. Yeah, definitely a human being. Because then they'll go into their whole, they'll do estrus, cow calls, and all this stuff. All you've done is calf sounds. They don't do all that stuff to calves.
No reason
So
to trigger that.
if a bull bugles back to you with no chuckles, now you're like, okay, this could be real. If you do more calf sounds, he bugles with no chuckles from the same place again. So if he's done 2 bugles from the same place, what does that tell you?
It moved.
He's
Tells you that
staying there.
he has cows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so if he bugles from the same place twice, he has cows. Treat him as a herd bull. Now all you got to do, working on the cows, try to get 60, 70 yards from the cows, get everything ready, bull call and cows bugle.
And a calf call is so much more natural in a 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. They're just walking around,
Yep.
lost, kicked out.
They're lost. They want to know where everybody's at and everybody wants to help them. So
Well,
get loud with it, get emotional with it, draw some out, do some voice in it. Just get crazy with that calf sound and they will respond.
If he's got cows with him, you should hear cows firing off too, shouldn't you?
Possibly.
Not
But
always.
a lot of times when he bugles, they're like, okay, he took care of it.
Okay.
So a lot of times they won't, but a lot of times the cows will come in.
Okay.
And if you do your calf sounds and you hear mewing back to you, it might be the bull mewing to you. If it sounds hideous, like it's a bull mewing to you. And if he mews to you, he is fully committed to the relationship with that calf. Be ready because he's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd
So
say
pretty much the
probably at least 50% of the bulls that we kill with the calf sounds mew back to us.
so the psychological behind it is the bull saying, "Hey, I'm coming to protect you."
No, no, he's coming to do business with that calf.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, bulls don't care. They have no societal limits like we do.
So,
So if that calf
okay.
will stand there long enough to get bred, it'll get bred.
hmm.
Bulls are pedophiles for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Um, I like the simplicity. It's really quite simple.
it's very simple. I only really do four sounds in the elk woods. I'll do a location bugle before light, high ringing frequency, no chuckles. But that's before daylight. The bulls will want to bugle back to you because they're going to want to warn you that they are there. So that's why they'll bugle back to you. But once it gets daylight, bulls don't do location bugles anymore. They don't do those longer, drawn out bugles anymore. So now you're just listening for roundup bugles. Again, those are short, fluty, no chuckles. So what I will do is I'll do location bugles, calf sounds, bull calling cows bugle, and then tending bugles and glunking. So and I use the tending bugles and glunking if I'm doing midday locating, like if nobody's calling back to me and it's a calf, or I'm doing a calf sounds and nobody's calling back to me, I will introduce tending bugles and glunking. I might be able to do that because it's not very
I was going to
loud.
ask you what that would sound like.
So let me see if I can do that. Could you hear that?
Yeah, that came through.
Yeah, so that's tending bugles and glunking. So you would precede that with a calf sound and then introduce that bull with tending bugles and glunking. And every bull that can hear that, that's a breeding scene. So every
So
bull that can hear that will bugle back to you.
I've heard you talk about this before and volume. The volume that you use. If you got cows that are right next to you, you're not going to be, screaming that tending bugle, right? Just like your buddy, if he's sitting next to you,
If
you're not
I've
going to
got cows next to me, I would be doing a bull calling cows bugle. And you can do that as loud as you want, as
okay.
close as I mean, I've done it 10 yards from cows, blowing it right over their back, and they don't even hardly lift their head. But if
Okay.
you were to cow call near cows, they lose their mind and off they go.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen it so many times. People cow calling near cows. It's the worst sound you could possibly make.
Um, just to respect your time and kind of move forward towards the end of our podcast, I want to just look at some final thoughts on that. No, Mark, you might have had one or two, but uh, I like that a lot. I like it a lot, and sometimes I feel like I go into the elk woods without a game plan, and it's just full on instinct of
Right.
I'm going off of, which is human instinct, and I'm trying to speak elk, so it doesn't make sense. And
Right.
I get lots of response. I get lots of playing with this bull, but there needs to be something that is helping me get that bull from that 50 to 100 yards to 20. And when I'm talking where I can't even see them, I want to get them to that 20 or where I got that opening or that clearing or something. And I've had a lot of bulls hang up or a lot of them wary coming in. And I think the last bull I shot it was only because I had that stalker decoy on the front of my bow, and that kept his curiosity. He's like, it's right there. It's right there. I see it. and that's what kept him at 40 until he had a shot or I had a shot. But I may have his buddy had taken off a little early. But I think that's what I needed. I need that little edge to speak a little bit better dialect is what it is.
Yep. Just biologically correct sounds. If you're sound checking, trying to locate elk, lost calf sounds are the best. And I'll send you guys some clips so you can have some audio of that. Lost calf. And then if he's got cows, slide in and bull calling cows bugle. He's going to try to remove you from the bar. If he doesn't have cows, he's going to way more readily come into a calf sound than he will a cow sound. No hang up spots on the calf sounds. I've called in a lot of bulls with this calf sound and they don't hang up. They come all the way.
That's fine.
So I just don't have to deal with that anymore. I used to have to deal with that all the time. I would talk about it in my seminars about the hang up spot and setting your shooter first and then the calling location, all that stuff. Nah, I don't even have to deal with that stuff anymore. I just calf call them right in.
Yeah.
So, Joel, I just got a few final questions for you. Clint may have a few others, but obviously the first one, was when's your primary time hunting, and like you said, the 8th through the 15th. If you could only choose 3 items in your gear pack, me being a new elk hunter, I've hunted whitetails my whole life, so I'm familiar with the woods. I can get my way around. If you could only choose 3 items besides your basic camo, pack, bow, what would you choose to take with you this September?
Number one's a pack out bag. They're made in Idaho, packoutbag.com. It's basically a human pannier. So you don't have to put your meat in your backpack anymore. It's got a big bag in the front, a big bag in the back. You can load it up with more weight. You can stand up straight, balanced. It's the best thing for packing meat by far. So now you can just hunt with a little day pack. Roll this thing up, stuff it in the bottom of your day pack. And when you kill your bull, game bags, pack out bag, knife, and you're good to go.
I like that.
Yeah, so that's number one. Number two would be a portable meat hook. So
never even thought about that.
Right, never thought about that. So I have a Bowyer broadheads used to make, I don't know if they still make them or not, a machined aluminum handle packable meat hook that the hook actually swings into the handle so you're not ever dealing with the hook in your pack. And that thing is so good, especially when you're by yourself, because I elk hunt by myself a lot. And just being able to hook into that piece of meat when you're boning it out it's amazing.
Is that like an S hook where you can hang it from like a branch and everything too, or is that just?
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
It's got holes through it that are drilled through the handle. So if you needed to, you could hang something by it. But again, it's just fits perfect in your hand. The hook comes out and you can just hook into your meat.
Huh.
And gosh, what would be my third one? I don't know. Pack out. I mean, obviously good knives and such, but I don't deal too much with the replaceable blade knives. I'm big into sharpening knives, so Montana Knife Company makes amazing knives, Benchmade, and out of Australia, R&N blades. Those are the 3 best knives that I know of. And as far as sharpening and retaining edge and all that stuff, just amazing blades.
Do you pack a sharpener with you?
I do. Yeah, I've got that the Work Sharp one that's got it's got a ceramic stick on it. It's got heavy diamond, light diamond, and that's what I use. It's about yay long or whatever.
Okay. Well, my final question for you: if you talking to new hunters, choosing between saving up points and really getting that good hunt, or cashing them in every 2 years, what would you recommend?
Cash them in every 2 years. You need the experience. and
Sure.
hunt by yourself. That's the number one tip I could give anybody. If you really want to kill bulls, hunt by yourself.
Okay.
Have people that will help you pack things out, but you do not need to be in the elk woods with 2 people or 3 people. It significantly reduces your odds.
Okay.
On a
Are you
comical,
talking about like, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
gonna say on a comical note, Remy Warren's last podcast is about creating his hunting party, and he just goes through the type of dudes in camp.
Yeah.
And there's so many of those guys. He's talking about the guy that's the know-it-all, the guy that talks too much, the guy that goes too fast, the guy that and for those reasons right there, you're so worried about what they're thinking, what they're doing, and instead of trying to learn and work through it on your own. So I'm
Yeah,
right.
like really, really learn meat care so you're not overwhelmed when you got this critter on the ground. I mean, there's so many videos that are out there, and just learn how to bone these things out, learn how to make things cooler, and your meat transport and all that stuff. But that pack out bag, I'm telling you, they laugh at me every time I bring it up because I deal with, Ryan Lampers and Dan Staten and all the badasses of the backcountry, right? And they all laugh at me. I'm like, you only laugh because you've never used it yet. I mean, you don't put a backpack on your goat, you put a pannier on it, so it's got weight on each side of it. Why would you not do that with yourself? You
Makes
know?
sense.
Yeah.
Joel, I love how you targeted that towards meat care and taking care of the meat because I feel the faith that you got in me this year coming up.
Yeah. Oh
We're
yeah.
at we're at 0-2, so let's change that.
Oh yeah. Well, I was 0 and 13, so let's not forget that. I started when I was 14 years old and I didn't kill a bull elk with my bow till I was 27.
Wow.
So,
Um, well,
yeah.
I got another thing I got to figure out as we're sitting here. My dad's texting me, and we've been going round and around about a horse because he's got a horse, and I'm going solo into a spot where even with panniers, it's just not responsible to go in there by yourself without a plan of
Yeah.
buddies or something. And
Sure. Sure. Have a plan, but don't be on that horse. Don't let that thing roll over you.
no, 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 no.
Pack out bag, buddy. I'm telling you, go look it up. Packoutbag.com. I have no affiliation with these people. They're a fantastic ranching family that makes these things.
Huh,
They're awesome. I've packed out thousands of pounds of elk meat in these things.
very good.
Joel, where can people go to find you?
So I've got a new website out there called turnermodel.com. And on that website, it's a awesome website. And it's got links to Shot IQ. There's also shotiq.com. There's mindiq.com. I've got a new online course coming out next week in the Mind IQ course. And so I'm on Instagram, Joel Turner Actual. And that's me. That's where I'm at.
Well, that's a perfect spot right there to call it a day and get back out and shoot some more arrows. I got a
Yeah.
hour before I got to go pick up my kids, so I'm gonna go fling some arrows as well.
Yeah. All right.
Uh, Thanks so much for your time today, and we're excited to. That gets me jacked. I am ready.
You ready to go?
Minus, minus my legs. I'm not legged up yet, but that gets me jacked mentally. So I'm ready to
Good.
roll. Great advice and our mental game. A lot of great advice on our calling game, and I like it. So I think this is a valuable one. We're going to share the crap out of this because there's some good stuff there. So I appreciate you very much.
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Joel, thanks for your time, and hopefully we can get you back on here soon.
All right. Take care, fellas.
All right, take care.